Every year from Feb 14 to Feb 20, the country observes the National Intellectual Disability Week. This morning, we'll discuss what intellectual disability actually means and how we can further raise awareness for people experiencing this. Joining us now here on the studio is Doctor Francis Dimalanta. He's a developmental and behavioral pediatrician. Good morning and welcome, Doc Francis. Now, let's talk about... Let's define first, what does intellectual disability actually mean?
Intellectual disability is a term now that we use instead of mental retardation. So it's a child or an adult who has an IQ below 70, and this has 4 different types: a mild, moderate, severe, and profound, depending on the capacity of the child.
Okay, let's talk about statistics a little bit. Gaano kadalas ito nangyari? How common is this around the world and here locally in the Philippines?
It's about 1% of our population. And the best example, I would say, for this would be the Down syndrome, which is a genetic accident. And incidentally, also for this month, we're celebrating the Down Syndrome Awareness Month.
Right, that's very good, and will definitely help boost awareness for that. Now, for a parent, how can a parent determine if their child does indeed have an intellectual disability that needs specialist intervention, medical intervention?
Yes, that's a very good question because, again, it's important that we recognize early on whether a child has a disability so that we can intervene and we can give them the proper support so that they can function at the level that potential of reaching their fullest potential, allowing them to reach that.
Now, maraming parents, syempre, ang concern dito, Doc Francis, gaano kaaga nila makikita itong mga intellectual deficits? What are some of the red flags? What are some of the signs?
Well, probably the child who cannot read, who has difficulty talking. There are some who are also socially awkward. Again, their development may not be at par with a normal child, including your physical, your fine motor skills, your language, and your personal social skills.
And when it comes to age, how old is a child bago makita itong mga manifestations?
Usually, they'll see it preschool when they enter, and because they can't do a lot of things that other children can do. But for example, I'd like to point out that a child shouldn't be writing at 2 years old. But a lot of schools will force them to write because developmentally they still can't hold that pencil in the proper way. So again, you go over this before they reach 6 years old, and then you will see all these other signs that may not allow the child to enter school.
Okay. Now, what are some tips for parents, especially with those with intellectual disabilities? How should they interact with these children? How should they go about this?
As normal as we treat other children. Again, we're talking about being inclusive. So you hear some people shout at them, like, what are you doing? You don't have to shout with these children or adults. You treat them the same way you would other children and then help them be the best version of themselves.
Yes, that's entirely true. And a lot of this is because of frustrations maybe of the parents. And the more they know, the more they understand, the less frustrations they would have with the child. Now, aside from National Intellectual Disability Week, I'd like also to discuss Down syndrome because February is National Down Syndrome Consciousness Month. Now, what's the overall picture of Down syndrome here in the Philippines, Doc Francis?
The CDC states that it's 1 out of 700 children, and it's a genetic accident. So we tell parents that they had nothing to do with this, although a mother who is much older and has a child may have a higher probability of having a child with Down syndrome.
Okay, now paano naman malalaman ng isang parent na ang anak nila ay may Down syndrome? How soon can they know?
Usually at birth, because there are physical characteristics that are seen, like the upward slant of the eye, low set ears, a webbed neck, all these features that you can see. However, we're supposed to do a chromosomal study so that we can find out for sure what kind of Down syndrome that is.
Okay, now a lot of people also try to look for reasons. Doc, meron bang nakain ng parent? Meron bang ginawa ito habang buntis pa ang nanay kaya nagkaroon ng Down syndrome?
Yeah, I would always tell them it's a genetic accident. So they didn't do anything to cause this. The youngest mother I had with a Down syndrome child is 18 years old. And again, like I said, as you move on in age, there will be the higher probability of having one. But there are some who have a child that's normal, and then a child with Down syndrome, and then another child that's normal. So you don't know when it's going to happen, so to speak.
Right. Now, Doc, those with Down syndrome, those kids with Down syndrome need extra care. How do we care for those children with Down syndrome?
Pretty much the same way we treat other children. That's what we always tell them. You don't treat them specially, but you expect them to do what every other child should be able to do based on their age. For example, you should also make them independent. You make them do household chores. You include them in all our activities that we do.
Okay, definitely such an insightful discussion with you, Dr. Francis Dimalanta. Thank you so much for joining us here on New Day. Christine?
Thank you very much.